We're back. That's right. Environmental Sustainability Committee. I know, right? What an entrance already. Man, this is probably the committee that hardly ever meets anymore. I think it's like 3 times a year now. I was giving John Barr shit about it the other day. Oh boy, I can't wait to see what kind of climate propaganda they're going to put out there tonight.
Okay, well, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Indianapolis City County Council's Environmental Sustainability Committee. I'm John Barth.
What the hell is Carlos Perkins wearing?
We'll start by introducing the members. Let's start over here on my right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Andy Nielsen, District 14.
Good evening, all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Carlos Perkins, District 6.
Hey, Doctor of Ministry, never forget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brienne Delaney, District 2, north side of Indianapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jesse Brown, District 13, Near East Side.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Dilk, District 24.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Derek Cahill, District 23.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nick Roberts, District 4.
Boy, I mean, only Cahill and Dilk is in there, huh? Well, we know Dilk isn't going to do anything.
Thank you to the committee members. So just a little introduction for everyone by way of background. This committee has a cadence to it that involves annually having content areas that we focus on and spending Q1 and Q2 digging into those issues, having public meetings, seeking presentations from experts in various fields to help us understand what our city might be facing and how the council can respond to it. In the past, we've done a lot thinking about urban forests, thinking about carbon capture.
Oh my God, carbon capture credits, if you forgot. They're going to use that to help do a bunch of funding.
A great deal of time thinking about recycling and have put forward a couple different...
By the way, the recycling, they don't have enough money for it. Everybody's rates will have to go up by a lot.
Proposals, especially one around carbon capture pilot that have come to reality. So the idea here is to be an active working committee and as much as possible to do that work in public and let people see sort of what we're grappling with and how we're trying to solve issues. This year, to kick things off, I really have been thinking a lot about issues that impact not only the city but the entire state, especially when it comes to air quality and water quality. Air quality we'll be hearing about tonight, and water quality at a future meeting. I think the LEAP district has put water quality on top of mind for everybody, and I had the opportunity to speak at some length with our friends from Citizens Energy Group recently about that. And so more to come on that in future meetings. But today we're going to kick things off hearing about No Zone and Mo McReynolds, who is the interim director of the Office of Sustainability. You've been interim director for quite a while.
I have. That's correct.
Jeez, I mean, if you could like look up libtard in a dictionary, she's got everything. She checks off all the boxes. She's got the little thermos, the sticker, the glasses, the whole enchilada. For sure.
We're very happy to have you here. I think,
as they would say,
everyone on the committee knows, but maybe not everyone who watches these meetings may not know that our past director, Morgan, has gone on to the airport, and this day or this meeting.
How funny is that? Is that Morgan Mickelson was like one of the founding members. She's the one who wanted this committee. She's the one who wanted this department. And then what happens after she gets a few shekels? She takes off, which really tells me it's all about money. It has nothing to do about the actual message.
Meeting last year, we had
fake as usual. They're all fake.
And what they do with sustainability.
I
remember being really impressed with the depth and commitment.
He's already going at it.
Sustainability that they have at the airport. So that's a good match, I think, and it's a great match to have Mo here as interim director. So why don't we turn it over to you?
Thank you so much. Well, for those of you I have not...
All right, so this is what I'm kind of wondering. John Barr's home is worth $420,000 right now. 420, bro. How much energy do you think his home produces? How much do you think he has solar panels? Probably not. Do you think he has a garden? Probably not. Any kind of energy that is not off the grid? Probably not. So I think we should do all of us should do a comparison. We should say, hey, if we really care about the climate, let's all put it out there. How much energy does your home produce?
Not met or not been able to see for a while. It's very nice to meet you or see you. I'm Mo McReynolds. I serve as the interim director for our office. I use she and her pronouns. I've been with the city for 7 years. I've been in our office for a little over 5. Very honored to be in this position and doing this work. I would like to acknowledge the other 2 staff members in our office at the moment. They can wave or they can stand up and be acknowledged, whichever. Lindsay Tremeri and Michael Milner are the other 2 staff. We have another position in our office that we hope to backfill this year. So we're going to talk a little bit about no zone. And this name comes from knowing about your ozone, but it speaks generally to the air quality in central Indiana, and specifically out of central Indiana, I say, because we do not just serve Indianapolis, Marion County. We actually serve the 9-county region, similar to the MPO. So that's a little bit of a wrinkle with this program. We're going to talk about what is AQI, what is no zone, what actions is our office taking, and what can residents do about it.
Well, we know AQI is probably air quality, right? I can't wait to find out what this no zone is and who came up with it and what kind of bullshit they're going to try and gaslight us into next.
So AQI, to even back this up a little bit, I'm going to give a real basic understanding of these, and then our folks from the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, our colleagues, are going to dive a little bit deeper into these concepts. So AQI is a score assembled, developed by the EPA, assembled in a nice colorful map like this.
I found it.
That tells us basically how we qualify and quantify the air quality when we measure it on any one particular time. AQI is a basic equation of ozone plus PM 2.5. These are the 2 types of air that we measure, that IDEM helps us to measure. I'm getting some of my notes here. So ozone might be a term you're familiar with, and it doesn't necessarily have to have a negative connotation. In fact, no zone in our stratospheric atmosphere is really helpful for protecting all of us from ultraviolet rays. However, when it's on the ground level, it's much more hazardous. So there are 2 particular differences there. Ozone itself is a reactive gas made out of 3 oxygen atoms. So there's your science lesson for the day. I'm going to advance there. And then the other portion of this is PM 2.5. And PM 2.5 is particulate matter of 2.5 microns. So that's about the size or the width of a piece of human hair, strand of human hair. It's really, really small. This can be from all types of sources: pollen, mold, soot, organic matter, various chemicals, etc. So these are the ways that we're thinking about air.
Wait a minute. They think autism is linked to this too? Certain particular. Yeah, it has to do with RFK, what Bobby Jr. said.
These are all the sources that PM 2.5 and ozone come from. They're extremely wide and varied, and
it's like watching Fern Gully all over again. Remember the acid rain? Remember the fear-mongering of the acid rain back in the 90s? Oh, we can't have spray cans anymore. They're putting up too much hydrocarbons and stuff. Oh, we have too much of this. California is a giant shithole, and they lead like the regulations in the entire country.
The importance of talking to the public about these sources is why we do this type of program, because as you can see, the number of sources is particularly diverse. Ozone and PM 2.5 can reduce how far we see. This could be a particular poor air quality day. We all can remember, I hope, to last year when we had particular wildfires from Canada that really made our air visible. So that's another example of when you can see our air and we know it's poor, but there's also a whole lot of days when we don't see that the air is perceptibly poor, but it could be. This is the ways, when we come up with that AQI score, this is the sections that it fits into to help us understand.
We got DEF CON, boys. We got DEF CON. It's totally over.
Whether it's good, moderate, unhealthy, for sensitive groups, unhealthy for everyone, or very unhealthy.
This is when
And
you're in
fact,
India.
Last summer with the wildfires, we actually hit very unhealthy. So unhealthy for everyone for the first time in central Indiana.
Wow, it's like we always follow the rules and nobody else does, but then we are the ones who have to have the consequence for it, huh?
This is a particular, this is the
What the fuck?
representation of on our No Zone website, the communications that our office puts out. This is how we interpret this classification system into colors and how we interpret it for our community in which of these categories is representing that day. A little bit more information that's available on some of our communications. We start breaking these things down into what is what's your ozone reading for the day, what's your PM 2.5 reading for the day. Indianapolis.
Can you imagine living your life like this? I mean, for real. I don't know, I keep pausing it, but I cannot stand this committee. It is like the biggest waste of tax money ever. This does nothing for the people of Indianapolis, for real. I'm being for real. Can you imagine living your day by day, just like anxiety filled, having to take a bunch of pills because you're worried about like, what's the air quality today? I might die. Man, what a garbage life that this only happens to people that live in urban areas. Like if you're in the urban area of Indianapolis, I mean, go and touch grass, bro.
This is particularly fraught with asthma. We do not have particularly good air quality. This is resulting from a number of sources, but we especially understand this with children under the age of 6, adults over the age of 60, and then anyone that has cardiac or pulmonary disorders. So what is No Zone? That's the name of our program that assembles all of that information that IDEM helps us understand and then communicates it in a repository of information and a program that helps us speak to the community and educate them about what they can do in understanding these air quality. So No Zone Action Days is something you may have heard of. Anytime I tell someone, were you a kid at a school in central Indiana? Then you may have heard of a No Zone Action Day. I certainly did as a child, as an IPS kid myself. I grew up with understanding No Zone Action Days and being aware of what they were, understanding that I would try to discourage my parents from filling up their gas tank before 6 p.m., not cutting the grass, trying to walk and bike more. All ways that we can help mitigate this air quality.
I'm sorry, I am not a lunatic, all right? When I have a no zone day, when there is a no zone day, the very first thing I do is go, you know what? My lawn could use a good trimming. You know what? Kind of looks like I might be a little bit low on fuel. I better top her off. And then I make sure that I cut the cat converter off, and I go, I just let the lawnmower run all day. Maybe I won't even cut my grass. Maybe I'll just let the lawnmower run.
We understand based on our research that approximately 75% of citizens are aware of this program and about 65% of them take action on these days. This is the number of days that have been called in the last 10 years or so. And this data seems fairly random. You might not understand that there's a slowly climbing number.
Oh my God. This is how we're worried about climate change.
Working on some analysis from our office that shows how this is an outcome of climate change.
There we go. There we go.
Shift in many ways. And
really? Because you had 11 days in 22 and you have 11 days in 2016. You had 22 days in 2023. You had 3 days in 2024. What the fuck are we talking about here?
That 22 number is pretty scary. So understanding last year, or 2 years ago, excuse me, that we had 22 days, that's a fairly complicated
These
number.
people are insane.
What does the city do in result of this?
Oh my God. Are you kidding me?
We operate our social media.
Hold on.
Channel 16. We do as much proactive communication as we can. Department of Public Works also adjusts their mowing schedule. So you may not always see the mayor on a mower on those days, but you will see DPW get off those diesel-powered mowers, get their hand tools out that are electric, get their mowers out that are electric, and convert that some of those hours to a more air-friendly approach on those days. We also would talk to our entire staff. So I think you all are getting those communications. If you're not, we are glad to include you on those.
Yeah, you know what? I want to be included in those too. Hey, Republicans. I would say, hey, Democrats, but you guys never reply back to me. Hey, Republicans, you mind putting me on the email list too? I know you guys won't, but at least you can't say that I never asked.
We have all sorts of community partners that help us do this, not only from measuring the air, but in proactively speaking to our community about how they can help understand the repercussions of air within their own health, and then how to proactively take part in helping mitigate air quality. We also have an interesting arm of No Zone, which is advocating for electric vehicles. So again, this is another way we can limit tailpipe emissions and help
You gotta be kidding me.
decarbonize our transportation sector.
By the way, I have gone to every single one of these, all right? And I remember talking to somebody this is my favorite story. I know all right, so I talk about this all the time, but I went to the very first one, and there was a guy from Indigo that was there. And I was like, oh, this thing's a hybrid, huh? And he goes, yeah, it'll go, he was saying that it's a fully electric. I'm like, but it's not. And he's like, no, it's full electric. We charge it up and it goes full electric. And I was like, it's a hybrid. It's like, you have to have the diesel engines or whatever engine. It's probably not a gas engine to charge the battery. And so it's a hybrid, right? That's why it's called a hybrid. You have the ICE, basically the internal combustion engine, and then you have the electric motor. And the guy couldn't wrap around. He's like, that's when I knew this thing was a whole joke, honestly. And there has been fewer people that have shown up to this thing, or fewer people have shown up since the very first one. They just don't have competent people there. I know more than all of you guys out there about electric cars, okay? You cannot fuck with me on that kind of stuff. And think about all the cobalt mining that has to be done too for these batteries.
Being highly evolved is the way we've chosen to brand this a few years ago. This is our highly evolved dinosaur. I encourage you to visit our websites. He's not just your average dinosaur. He's a highly evolved dinosaur. He drives an EV. He's not just those tar sands that carbon material comes from.
We really are a joke.
We do a whole lot of public engagement and education, and here's an example there with our billboard. And then the other type of communication we have that's very specific is the good, better, best. Here's things that your average resident can do. Here's some ways you can help improve air quality for your entire community, and we make a whole lot of suggestions.
Oh.
So on those, you're going to see filling your gas tank after 7.
Nope.
Trying not to let your car idle.
Nope.
Maybe better is choosing to use public transit or...
Haha, hard no. Oh, and combine all errands into one trip. Yeah. Have you met people lately? Keep your car well maintained. Okay, that's good. Avoid sudden. Yeah, obviously. Carpool. Use public transit. Eat shit. Purchase fuel efficient, low emission vehicles. I'll do whatever the fuck I want. Ride a bike to your destination. Definitely not going to happen. Walk to your destination. Definitely not going to happen. Track your miles for a chance to win prizes. What the hell? Oh God. Okay.
Carpool, and then a potential best outcome is riding your bike, walking, fully getting out of that internal or that single occupancy vehicle. Other examples of things you can do in your home: turning off your lights, using LED light bulbs, and opening the blinds, turning off your air conditioning. Another example. You can read these. I don't need to read them to you. So here's our 2 primary brands that we utilize out of this particular sector, which is funded by a portion of Federal Highway Authority. So this does not come out of our operations budget. We're a frequent applier to this program and have been successful in operating these brands for almost 30 years. And then here's all of our socials that folks can stay plugged into our office and everything we do.
Thank you. I have a question to start things off, and we'll go to the committee members. One point I've made to your team multiple times is that your office punches above its weight on outbound communication, and something that Councilor Roberts and I, in fact, over the weekend were talking about was just the complications of in a
Really? Because they haven't had anything on social media since January 7th, and then even before that, it was December.
Use media environment trying to get outbound communication to people who need to hear it. But I am always very aware when it's a no zone action day, probably because I follow you on all those socials and I'm more tuned in to your office probably than many. But it definitely goes across my radar screen. So do you just talk a little bit more about let me just say this. It sounds like you have a very intentional and strategic way of trying to get this information out. So assuming that's the case, and it seems obvious, in that, what have you done to make sure you're hitting all these different channels? And do you have any other thoughts for the future as to what you might do as the media environment continues to get more and more complicated?
Well, that's very kind of you to acknowledge that. We do our best. We're certainly motivated in what we do. Those that are in our office definitely understand the mission and are super motivated to do our job, certainly also for the city of Indianapolis. Yes, communication and new media has evolved.
Hey, boys, smash or pass? Hold on. Hold on. Smash or pass? I mean, I think she has a liquor license, but nah.
Continues to all the time. We are not only trying to take advantage of all the technologies possible while not getting into every fad of an app that exists out there. However, we're always interested in new partners. So if there are partners that you have a suggestion of that we might be able to work with to help extend this message, or if those in the community are interested in partnering with us, we're interested to hear that. All of this ramps up to Thrive Indianapolis, which you see here is our city's sustainability and resilience plan. That's 59 action items, and I think we're going to talk to you about an update of that in a few months. But that plan was not only developed with the community and engaging about 200,000 unique responses, but the idea is to execute with the community. So public-private partnerships are the crux of completing those action items. 4 people, even if we had 40 people, could not achieve those work. So we are absolutely involved in engaging with community partners to achieve this work.
Thank you. Questions from other people? Councilor Delaney?
At the very beginning of the presentation, I think you said that you manage the regional no-zone program.
We do.
So does the office receive funding from either like a state or a federal level to do that? I was just hoping you could explain how, you sit within the city of Indianapolis, but yet it seems like you're getting funding from other sources, or if you could explain that relationship, that would be helpful.
Yeah, it's not clear. You're correct. So the Metropolitan Planning Organization utilizes Federal Highway Authority funding that also goes into other forms of infrastructure. However, in responding to some of that infrastructure and all the ways that our transportation system impacts our local air, water, soil health, this is one way we can help mitigate and inform.
So it comes through MPO funding?
It does.
Okay.
And so we extend our message through billboards into the 9-county region, into media sources in the 9-county region. For this particular messaging, we don't just focus on Indianapolis. We work within schools in those other counties, et cetera.
Other questions? Let's go Councilor Roberts and then Councilor Brad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Interim Director McReynolds. I appreciate the presentation. This is not on the agenda tonight in terms of what you've talked about so far, and this might be something that I am unaware of in terms of it falls under, because I know you're under DPW. If this is more of a you issue, more of a DPW issue, but one thing I've heard many constituents reach out about over the last 3 months was the closure of the Tox Drop site on 10th and Post. And for constituents in my district, there's the one in Traders Point, which is like half an hour away. There's one in Perry Township, which is like 35 minutes away. And that one wasn't much closer either. It was like 20 or 25 minutes away. But I know that there was some issues at that site. But if it is your guys' responsibility, has there been any conversations about opening up a new site on the northeast side to give a more convenient option for people? Because honestly, I didn't realize until it closed how many people had reached out to me via email that utilized that site a lot, that really were sad that it closed, because now they have to go even further. So I appreciate it, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help out, work on that issue.
Yeah, while our office is certainly concerned and focused on where we do operate and dispose of hazardous materials, it's not a program we manage. Gotcha. So I'd be glad to connect you to the staff and Department of Public Works to do that.
Gotcha, thank you.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Interim Director McReynolds. So many syllables there. Thank you both.
That's too many words.
I have been on record before, and I want to reiterate that I'm a gigantic fan of your department. I think probably Indianapolis taxpayers get the biggest bang for their buck in terms of ROI.
Are you fucking stupid? What are you talking about?
You're always doing amazing work, including transparency, and I want to thank you for that first and foremost. Great presentation. I would agree with the chairman that I also manage to see every time, I feel like, even though any other person trying to get my attention on social media, I have 10,000 bells and whistles, but you cut through, so kudos on that. I did want to bring up, a few weeks ago, and thank you to Councilor Nielsen who brought this up in the in the Public Works Committee meeting. What was that? 2 weeks ago at this point, the Board of Public Works had a walk-on agenda item to renew for 10 years the trash incineration program at former Covanta, now ReWorld. Our board, council appointees to the board voted no to this, but they weren't given any time to ask questions. There was no public input or engagement before, which really is the antithesis of kind of the MO I've seen from your office.
What he's talking about is Covanta is burns I don't know, more than half of the trash in Indianapolis because it powers steam engines. I don't know what the steam engines power, if it's powering lights in the area or if it's powering a warehouse or whatever, but talking about Covanta now, Real World just renewed their contract recently, and I think they might be getting a new building too. And what he's mad about is because during the Public Works Board meeting last month, I think it was last month, they didn't have any way for public comment to happen. This actually just sprung up on them too. It wasn't even on the agenda.
However, the board members were given an email today, it looks like, that says that the Office of Sustainability was in charge of reviewing that decision.
Oh.
And to me, that just seemed like an attempt to pass the buck. And so I know I'm putting you on the spot. Can you talk about what your department's, you have 3 people who are already doing 100 jobs. How much input did you have into that decision? And can you talk about that timeline at all?
Yeah, I don't think that in charge is the proper characterization, mostly that we're a part of a team as being a part of the Department of Public Works. We certainly serve a purpose in helping the department review those. I have signed a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't be particularly specific, but the universal, 40,000 foot view of this, incineration, landfill, wastewater, all of these things are a part of an overall system, and we have not seen a better example. Also, the consultant that we hired that led us through a whole lot of case studies, it's just a part of the overall system here. I think we get the opportunity in March potentially to talk about the solid waste system writ large, so I think that might be another opportunity to do so. If we're concerned specifically about the air implications with the incinerator, we're glad we've already spoken to our IDEM colleagues about this evening. I'm sure they could offer a little bit more.
Yeah, it's within standards. I already saw the committee video. People who don't understand, it's not like you're going to a campfire and just throwing stuff on there. This thing goes through an emissions process, if you would want to say that, where it goes through filters and cleanup. So when you're putting it back in the air, it has a certain quality or only a certain amount. And IDEM with federal set the standards. And according to the board meeting, they were within standards. But the people don't know what the fuck they're talking about on that board. I know more than those people on that board, but the Republicans and Democrats will never let me on it.
The incinerator, ReWorld Covanta, is not the largest source of PM 2.5 because it's not going to be ozone. It's going to be PM 2.5 that comes out of the stacks. It's not nearly going to be large compared to our transportation sector, compared to industry, construction, all the different places that PM 2.5 comes from.
And when she says construction, she's not talking about factories. She's talking about bulldozers. She's talking about heavy equipment, that kind of stuff. Those big giant cranes that are building the Signia Hotel right now, that kind of stuff. But you guys really wanted a hotel.
It's not comparable in terms of stature.
Okay, I think that is helpful. And yeah, I think I remember being at a sustainability conference last year where we learned about how much methane from landfills is actually a really huge significant part of climate change, and so I know there's trade-offs and there's no silver bullet for managing waste. But
and truly, a ratio of many solutions is, I mean, we're Hoosiers. Like, we like to be middle of the road, but diversifying that source so that if one falls out, you don't have to rely on others is the proper and necessary solution.
Okay, I appreciate that. I still, this isn't directed at you because I don't think it was your decision, but I have real objections to the way in which this was conducted. Even our board members weren't given advance notice. I really think this should have gone to the council for review. I think it should have gone to public hearing, because if indeed it is the case that anybody reviewing all the serious options would have come to the same conclusion, I think we should prove that. Yeah. And I think that it's really inappropriate for these kind of decisions, because I think there is some number of children who will develop asthma as a result of these extra PM 2.5 emissions, even granted that that's not the predominant, factor.
Yeah.
We're poisoning children, and we're not even letting the public put that up to a vote. And so
Dude, there is a set of standards, and I'm not saying that all companies have it, but like, unless you enforce them, like his wife is an environmental lawyer, so that's where he's getting all his information from. But he is right, though, when it comes to the board meeting, there should have been a lot more transparency on it. And the only reason why I even know about it is because Ryan Martin, I think from Mere Indie, he posted it, and so I went and watched the video. Then I realized, like, all those board members have no idea what they're talking about. Like, without even like going into it, I know more than those people.
That was extremely disappointing. Again, not blaming you or your department for that, although it does seem like your boss was blaming you and your department for that. Just putting it out there. So
I hope in March, when more of these things have come to a place where we can speak about them publicly, we can draw the larger picture here.
Appreciate that.
So 2 things. I appreciate Councilor Brown's comments. I think they're fair. And to the interim director's point, we do have a meeting planned in March where we'll be talking about this issue writ large. And my hope is that at that time we'll be past any restrictions on commenting. Do we think that will likely be the case at that point?
I hope so. It may depend on negotiations of those upcoming contracts, but I certainly hope so. That's why,
Yes.
in your and my planning of these events, we put that one off to a time that felt most appropriate.
Yeah. So thank you. I appreciate your comments. One final question on this, unless anyone else has before I move on. On your data you presented.
Do you want me to go back?
On the number of days per year, and it was up and down, but you commented that even though just eyeballing the data, it looks like it's a wild fluctuation between years, but actually if you look at the data behind the data, it's a steady upward click. Can you explain
here we
that
go.
a little bit more?
Yeah, so I'm sure this is understandable, that if you drew sort of a median line through some of this data, you would see an upward trajectory, but that's also where we're working to utilize some of the resources from the Office of Audit and OAP, excuse me, I'm forgetting the acronym there, Audit and Performance, to utilize some sources to help us analyze that in a longer term, understanding that projection. That 22 is really just that indicator there. Last year was sort of an anomaly in that we had not had 3, and 4. You only see 3 and 4 in the last couple years, and then you go all the way down to 2 nearly 10 years ago. So staying around that, about an average of 10 is what we had projected to see. But even if you go back into the early 2000s, you weren't seeing numbers like that. That 22 is that real big spike. Fortunately, we didn't see that number and those figures in 2024. I don't know what we'll see in 2024.
You know what's funny? I would be really curious if you tracked immigration numbers to that too, because you had all these third worlders come in and just start burning shit. I have that problem on my street, and it's not like IMPD is going to do anything, or well, IMPD can't really do anything, but it's not like any of these. I think it's OPHS. Not like they're going to do anything. They're short-staffed, and it's not like even if they do anything, if they get fined, Ryan Mears will just make sure that they don't have to pay the fine somehow.
2025. Our partners at IDEM, this is where this partnership is really crucial, is understanding what's coming out of Canada, what's coming out of the Northwest, what's coming out across the ocean. In 2022, Lindsay, when we had the dust storm.
Yeah. For 21.
I think it might have been. I can't recall which year.
So it's nothing that we're doing. It's something everybody else is doing. But somehow we have to pay the piper. Get the fuck out of here, crazy woman.
There were a few days that we had a PM 2.5 air quality alert day from Saharan dust storms. I mean, these events, these extreme weather events that are happening across the globe are affecting the Midwest.
Oh my
Just
God,
because they
shut up. Shut
the
the fuck
origin
up.
isn't the Midwest doesn't mean we aren't affected by them. And they're happening increasingly more.
Okay, so thank you for that. And then before we move on to one more comment on this. On the measurement of this, would that be a better question for our friends from IDEM, how the measurement is actually collected and how I guess I didn't quite track that.
Yeah, that's a little bit of where where I've outlaid the, how they help us measure ozone on any one particular day, where that measurement comes from, how we measure PM 2.5, where that measurement comes from. They're going to tell you the backstory there.
Super. And then my actual final comment related to your presentation, and goes back to something Councilor Brown said. I'm not asking for your comment on this particular issue because you don't need to weigh in on this, but I have
recycling, isn't it?
Very vocally and for a long time expressed that I think the work that the interim director and her team does is so important that it shouldn't be nestled in DPW. It should be its own department or strictly to the mayor.
Absolutely not.
So getting to your issue earlier, I think that may be a component of
Look at this guy. He's
that
jerking
whole
himself
dynamic.
off.
But again, not asking you to weigh in on that, interim director, just expressing my own personal opinion.
Then I won't respond.
Okay, with that, we will thank you for your time and your effort putting that together, and ask our friends from IDEM to come up.
Thank you. I'm going to bring up John Welsh from the air monitoring sector of Indiana Department of Environmental Management.
Boy, you know what? The city doesn't have any money to build another department. Animal control just have their own department, which was a good idea, but for, jeez, it's just a terrible idea.
Good evening. My name is John Welch. I'm an air quality forecaster with the Indiana Department of Environmental Management. I've been with the program since its inception in 1998, so I have a little bit of history with the program since the beginning. All right, I'll just jump right in, and some of the stuff I'm going to cover will kind of cover the same ground as Mo did, but we intersect quite a bit on what we do, and you'll see as we go along. We forecast statewide.
What is this kind of gerrymandering?
We have a pretty good partnership with the city of Indianapolis. We have a similar partnership with the city of Louisville, but in general, we forecast statewide, and then the regions are broken down by counties because that's how we communicate with the National Weather Service. And you'll see on the next slide how we're broken down forecaster-wise. Mark Durf is our section chief. We're all degree meteorologists. Mark's been with the program since I have in the early 90s. I'm the lead forecaster for the state. I'm responsible for most of the communication, kind of organizing the team, making sure that Mo knows what's going on every week. And then we have our regional forecasters. I also cover the northern region. And then I have a co-forecaster for the northern region, and our regional forecaster for central Indiana that Mo works with quite a bit is Sonia Mark, and then Steve Sherman covers our southern areas, and all the forecasters are able to cross. You want me to kill that?
Sam is praising you.
Yeah. Would have been funnier or something naughtier.
Sam, we agree with you.
You want me to respond?
Oh my God. I can respond. I had closed my teams. I'm not sure how that came up there.
She's blushing so bad.
Just text me, Sam.
Is he watching?
Yeah, let's just to reset for people watching at home. Mo is getting praise from her boss, right, for her presentation, which we all uniformly agree with. Now we'll turn it back to our friends from Mike.
Okay. As far as forecasting goes, we're all cross-trained with each other's areas, so we trade off responsibility. So Mo may hear from me, or she may hear from any other forecasters. Everybody is equal in our roles, essentially. Will it rotate? Here we go. Hang on. What happened? Okay. Brief history. We started in 1998. Like I said, it was a long time ago. We've had a partnership with Indianapolis ever since then. Our program's called Smog Watch. Theirs is called No Zone. Just some little wording differences. We forecast ozone during the summer months. Our monitoring season is March 1st through October 31st for ozone. So we'll start issuing forecasts sometime in March. And then we forecast for PM 2.5 statewide, and that started in 2007 due to a revision that the EPA revised the standard in October of 2006. And so currently, I'm just forecasting PM 2.5, and that's all my team's doing. And in March, we'll make the transition to ozone, and then we increase our, communication tempo with the city as we go along. All right, working with the city of Indianapolis. Again, they're involved in the process. So if today was a hot, hazy, humid day and we thought we were going to have ozone or high PM 2.5 today or tomorrow, the forecasting team is highly encouraged to get started early, make a decision early, or at least have an idea where we're heading. We like to reach out to them as soon as we can to start the process, because I know the city of Indianapolis has a lot of actions that they take as we go along. But we do not pull the trigger, essentially, on an ozone action day or an ozone action day until we get concurrence from the city. So we're kind of equal partners in the decision-making. If they say no, we say no. But most of the time, I think they say yes. So we provide the technical background with the understanding of what their needs are as well. And during the ozone season, we're forecasting every single day. So when it gets to be Friday afternoon, she'll get a push communication from me that says, who's the forecaster on duty, what do we think is going to happen, and what are your thoughts for the weekend as well? If we need to figure out how to communicate over the weekend, we do that up front. So I like to push communication to my partners with the city rather than have them ask us. And that seems to be very effective, especially in the last year or two. We learned a lot in the summer of '23 due to wildfire smoke. All right, ozone formation. Mo touched on this briefly. You got an inflow into central Indiana. You have emissions from cars. Forest actually provides something called isoprene, which is also VOC. You have nitrogen oxides from power plants, et cetera. All this is industrial stuff. It bakes in the right conditions in sunlight when the temperatures are right, and we form ozone. Just a brief run over of source of particulate matter. There are direct emissions from particular stacks, from something that's being burned, from construction, from agriculture, brake dust, tire dust. These are all directly emitted sources of particulate matter, and then we have secondary formation of other pollutants that form through chemical processes in the atmosphere, and both of those can be deposited on our monitors and in the lungs of people who breathe it. Okay, AQI basics. Mo touched on this, but I'll dig into this a little bit more. We'll issue a forecast for good or moderate every single day. That's most days we have in Indiana, statewide. Now, during a large smoke event, whether it be a local event or a regional event with smoke from Canada, we may see values creep above the standard. So when you get to the orange category or unsafe or sensitive groups, you're basically either over the ozone standard, the 8-hour ozone standard, or over the 24-hour standard for PM 2.5. And that's where we start getting concerned, because if you have citizens with COPD, they have other breathing issues, heart disease, they're elderly, they're very young. As a father of a child who had asthma, I understand this completely, so I completely can relate to these types of things. So this is very important to people. I have neighbors that ask me this stuff because, there are people that really care about this. And so we will start issuing our alerts once we get to unhealthy for sensitive groups and beyond. In 2023, we saw some unhealthy and very unhealthy for a few hours here and there. But it was like that across most of the country from Canadian wildfire spike. Again, a very unique event.
Oh, what did I like that, huh? Eh? What do you think about that, Mo? Guess what? Everybody was dealing with it.
Monitoring sites. These are sites that the state of Indiana runs. We have dual monitoring sites that measure for both ozone and PM 2.5 at some locations. And then we have some that either do ozone or PM 2.5 as well. And they're scattered across central Indiana, primarily in Indianapolis. So I just wanted to give you guys a brief overview of what the monitoring network look like for us. And again, PM 2.5 is year-round, and ozone is just March 1st through the end of October. And so these heat maps are kind of interesting, but they can be kind of confusing. So if it doesn't make sense, please ask. So this is historical ozone across Indianapolis, and we started in 1999, and we moved all the way to 2024. And the colors tell you what the AQI was. And so you can see a lot of orange and reds back in the day, and they slowly start to improve. And I attribute this to, the control programs we have in place, permitting, rules, regulations, things that matter, and you can see the trends in some of this stuff. And, ozone, and this is only March through September, so you can see it kind of varies, but the middle of summer we get quite a bit. But I've seen it improve personally over the years.
I mean, actually, yeah, look at this. Yeah, that's a good point. Look, you saw a bunch of purple, very unhealthy in 2022 or 2002. And look, it's actually like having less, especially in 2012. That was like the last time we really saw a lot of yellow. Huh. How do you like that, Mo? How do you like that?
PM 2.5, pretty across the board. These are actual measurements. These aren't forecasts that we've issued. These are actual measurements. So a lot of moderates on most days, and you'll see like down through the middle of the summer, you'll see some higher levels. 2023 was an outlier, a lot of purples and reds. You'll see some higher values in the late fall and in the dead of winter. Usually the fall is burning events, people bonfires, campfires, and stuff like that.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Outlaw campfires? Is that what you're going to do? Look at this, actually. It's getting more green. Way more green.
Summertime could be Saharan dust, or it could be wildfires from Canada, or it could be western wildfires. Generally hot, dry conditions. And then you'll see a little bit in the wintertime, too. Like if we have a big snow event like we had recently, sometimes what will happen is you get 5 or 6 inches of snow, and you'll hear a local forecaster say, oh, it's going to be 50 degrees today. But you never see it because you end up with a dirty high pressure overhead, and you have cloud cover, and an inversion builds in. And as the snow melts, that stuff releases. It gets trapped in the lower layers of the atmosphere in the boundary layer. We have not seen that this year. So in this snow event, the wind speeds have kicked up. We've had clear skies. When the snow melts and those pollutants that get released, that get dragged down when the snow fell, blow out of the area. So you wouldn't see it on a week like this, generally. All right, forecasting procedure. So my day starts pretty early. The forecast team gets in, they start doing their thing. I'll look at yesterday's monitoring values from your ozone or PM 2.5, whichever one it is. I'll look at yesterday's weather conditions. Was it hot? Was it dry? And I'll look at today's weather conditions as well. So has something changed? Are we still under that same hot dome? Some of the local forecasters will talk about that. And that's the way I like to kind of frame this. You get under that hot dome, you're under the same dirty air mass, region-wide. And if the high pressure is sitting over you and there's not much circulation in the lower levels of the atmosphere, those pollutants just kind of hang around and bake. So you'll see multi-day events as a result sometimes. So we look for that. We evaluate wind speeds, cloud cover, temperatures, everything, all the way up from the surface up to about the level of the jet stream. And so our regional forecasters go through that process every day or every couple days, depending on the time of the year. And then we examine what the forecast models say for tomorrow, the NAM or the Euro or the Global Forecasting System models. And we also have air quality models that will tie the weather into what the models think air quality will be as well. And then we build a forecast. And if we decide to issue an action day, we go through our process of communicating with the city. We also have our own internal process as far as developing press releases and our outreach to our other partners. We work very closely with the National Weather Service offices here in Indianapolis, the Northern Office, the Chicago Field Office. I've had calls from the Chicago Field Office on a Saturday afternoon about forecasts because they want to clarify, because we share a media environment with Chicago as well up there.
That's because of the urban area.
So if the forecasters decide to issue an air quality action day, again, we think values are going to exceed either the ozone or PM 2.5 standard. We reach out as soon as we can to Mo here, particularly in the city. We obtain their input and we make our decision. And once we do that, we'll do our press releases. We'll reach out to the National Weather Service, and then we'll push it to our website. Like I said, Indianapolis and Louisville are the only regional areas we actually partner with. The rest of the state, we're responsible for forecasting. So if I issue something for Lake County, I issue it. And then once everything's up and out, communication's done, press releases are out, all our data goes to what I call our Smog Watch site. It's our new website. We had a 10-year-old site, we updated it. This one's actually mobile friendly. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback. On the left-hand side is actual monitoring data. You can click on a monitor in your neighborhood or zoom in or out and see what the AQI actually is, where you live. You have today and tomorrow's ozone and PM 2.5. Green is good, yellow is moderate, orange is unsafe for sensitive groups. So you can click through all that. There's a lot of data about what action days mean, what actions to take, what the AQI levels mean. It's a wealth of information. There's a link to sign up as well. And so once everything goes out, signboards go up on the highway, NDOT puts up their little banners, you guys do your communication. We push this stuff out as well on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and I don't know if it's hit LinkedIn or not, but the main social medias. And then in the evening, if we issue one, I make sure I cruise through all the local news channels. And the local weather people do pick this up. Because if the press release goes out by noon, it makes their 5 o'clock newscast. And with that, any questions? And there's a QR code for our smog alert site or smog watch site.
Yeah, I don't give a
I
fuck.
checked it, a few minutes ago, so it does work.
Yeah, I don't give a
so
fuck.
Like I said, we're very proactive in what we do. You know, we've sought a lot of input, and the summer of '23 was interesting because we got a lot more people interested in what we're doing and signing up for these things. So.
Thank you. This is
welcome.
very interesting. I have a couple questions. The
Sure.
first is, do you also have a dinosaur?
How long I've been doing this?
No. No, they have a dinosaur mascot who
no,
helps with communication.
No, no dinosaur. Sorry, you missed me on that. I thought you was joking about how long I've been doing this.
No.
That's okay.
My real question is,
Yes.
the monitoring
Yes.
and the monitoring stations. Can you talk a little bit about how that works? And I'm interested, from a environmental justice perspective, I'm interested in where they are and why they are in certain places, because the concern I think a lot of people would have is, do they pick up where there's disproportionate air pollution as, let's say, a certain factory in a certain neighborhood, there's a higher proportion of air pollution because of, and do we pick that up, and can we understand that from your data?
Right, and that's a good point. These are cited based on EPA citing criteria. These are our NACS monitors. We have done that. There's a School 21 monitor on the east side, and I actually worked on that project in the 90s when the coke oven was still in operation. We did a toxic study over there, so we have done that in the past, and we are still capable of doing that. We have the ability to deploy extra monitors as needed, and then there's purple air as well, that people, those sensors they wear. But yes, we can cite based on specific requests or criteria.
So, and so where they're located is based on some kind of federal standards? Of some sort?
Yeah,
Okay.
EPA citing criteria. Somewhat like Washington Park's continuous. It's in a big trailer, it collects meteorological data, and it pulls data constantly. And it collects NOx, SO2, and maybe some toxics. But we have a variety of monitors all over the state that pulls all this information. And in some are like 1 and 3, where it actually picks up on a paper disc that has to be analyzed at the lab.
And just at a high level for a amateur, like, how is this collecting this? Is it collecting some kind of an intake, and you have filters? I'm just curious how you actually get the data and make these assessments.
On the 1 and 3 or the 1 and 6, it's actually a piece of filter material that comes to the lab that has to be measured. Okay. For ozone and PM 2.5 and the other stuff, it's continuous. I don't know if it's a mass spec. I can't remember what's out there. I've been out there once, but it's continuous. It continually dumps that into the website.
Okay, so it's pulling it in constantly.
Constantly, and it's quality assured, and then EPA verifies it as well over time. So that's something we're required to do.
And do the different sites, are they pulled together and there's an aggregate assessment, or is it by location what you're looking at?
It could be an aggregate assessment if you're looking at non-attainment status.
Okay.
You know, you might have a monitor or two that is troublesome, so yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions?
No? I talk fast sometimes, but it's okay. I've done this a lot, and I've done it for a long time.
I think Councilor Roberts.
I'll just make a really quick comment. I appreciate your staff for coming to the Indianapolis Animal Shelter. They did an amazing job. There were like 50 volunteers from your staff that came, and the staff at the IACS told me that was the most clean the shelter's ever been in 20 years. No joke, because of all they were like, I didn't realize it was an IDEM thing, but there were probably 50 staff members from your office that went there to volunteer, which is a great way of giving back to the community. Appreciate your office doing that. I think it was for no, not Earth Day. It was one of the different holidays, and I appreciate you
remember
doing
that.
that.
I saw that on our social media site, yeah.
So I have just one final question then.
Sure.
Similar to the question I asked the interim director, and you referenced it, you have multiple channels where you're pushing out, major socials, you said, press
Right.
releases, and it sounds like you get a big amplification hit from broadcast media. Is that probably your biggest way of
Yeah, we
communicating?
get something from the local TV stations, and then the National Weather Service put it on their landing page. Like, if you look at their map, when you go to weather.gov, it'll have like the pink and the blues for the different winter weather events. But in the summertime, you'll see gray, and it's for the air quality alerts. And it has all of our data in there, and it'll say issued by either Office of Sustainability or us. And we found that to be very effective. And like I said, we really honed in on that communication piece, because the Weather Service has got a built-in structure to make that happen, and they do it pretty quickly.
And I guess the final question I have, which is not an easy one necessarily, so you're welcome to follow up with me, but as I mentioned at the beginning, one of the things we do here is really try to dig into these issues, understand them, and assess what we can do to make improvements. So we are
Oh, really?
in partnership with IDEM, the city is assessing making recommendations, pushing it out to people as to what they can do to manage the air pollution. What can we do as a city to help minimize or reduce air pollution in general? Like, what else other than what we're asking people to do that the interim director noted in our good, better, best chart? Like, is there policy actions or actions that the council can take? And I'll give you one example. Okay. One of the priorities we've had with this group has been to the preservation of urban forests.
Absolutely.
The acquisition of urban forests, the carbon capture pilot we're doing. That seems like a pretty evident thing, but is there anything else that, just from your perspective, from a policy perspective, we could be thinking about?
You know, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything because, you know, we communicate.
Literally an urban forest. I just like, I'm thinking about this, right? Because we hear about urban forest all the time, and it's just like, it's just trees in like an urban area, right? That's all it is. And I just chat GPT. It's like, what is an urban forest? An urban forest refers to all the trees, vegetation, and green space within a city or urban area. This includes trees along streets and parks, backyards, gardens, riverbanks, and even rooftop gardens. Urban forests, blah, 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 blah. That's literally all it is. It's just trees in the city. But they want to have their own quirky fucking term so they can feel special about it.
Communicate to the public, we all do. The city and the state does regarding actions they could take on a short-term basis for these types of days. But in general, you know, planting more trees is always a good thing. It cools the urban environment. You know, it uptakes carbon dioxide, so there's no downside to that, in my opinion. You know, those types of things. And then continuing this partnership between the city and the state, and then communicating with the public in an effective manner. So off the top of my head, I can't come up with anything in addition to what we're already doing. I mean, I've seen a lot of progress in the years we've done this, so it's great to see it continue.
Okay. Yeah.
Here's a thought. Maybe make sure that people aren't burning shit. You know, maybe there should, instead of having this department and spending the money on that, we should find people that will go to these areas and make sure that none of these third worlders are setting their garbage on fire.
And I will just close on that. I mean, I also really appreciate the partnership between the state and the city. As you and I talked about earlier, I worked for many years myself for FSSA, and because of that connectivity, a lot of us have worked on mental health issues, and so there was a transition in governor. The former director of the mental health agency has transitioned out, but we had a really great partnership with thinking about how the city and the state can work together on addressing mental health issues, and I think there's many more opportunities for that kind of work. So you being here means a lot, and we really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And to the whole team, thanks very much. And I will say this, I was reached out to 1 year ago, and so it took us a year to get this to happen, but well worth it. So thanks to you and the whole team.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we do have one final issue. Is Julia here?
No, we're going to have Herb Engman from IDEM do the portion on engagement and outreach.
Oh, my mistake. I didn't realize that. I'm sorry, Herb. I misunderstood that. Please, step right up.
Yes, you're good.
This is literally a bullshit committee.
Good evening.
It's literally a bullshit committee. That's why, like, nobody's really talking at all. There's like, I'm just here to collect my money.
My name's Herb Engman. I'm with IDEM. I'm with the Environmental Stakeholder Inclusion Program. And so before we get into the ESI program, we're going to talk a little bit about IDEM and give you some background about the agency. IDEM came to be because of Title 13 that the General Assembly ordered in 1985. And IDEM then began operations in July of '86.
Okay.
Here you see our mission statement, which is to implement federal and state regulations to protect human health and the environment while allowing the environmentally sound operations of industrial, agricultural, commercial, and governmental activities vital to a prosperous economy. So what we're looking for in our mission statement is a balance between human health, the environment, and business interests. Here's some functions that are shared within the offices of Office of Air Quality, Water Quality, and Land Quality, as well as our legal staff. We administer environmental permit programs that define scientifically determined limits to protect human health and the environment. We provide compliance and technical assistance to regulated entities through our CTAP program, which is confidential assistance for permittees. We undertake enforcement actions as necessary to ensure compliance. And as you saw earlier, we collect environmental data and report that to the public and the EPA. The next couple of slides are going to be highlights from last year. We've already talked a little bit about air. But if we're talking about our number of average turnaround time for inspection reports, you can see that in 2016, it took about a month and a half to get permittees their inspection reports. That's problematic. If there's compliance issues, we want them to know right away. So we brought down that metric through a couple of different procedures or getting rid of procedures to about a turnaround time of 4 days. And then you also see that we have no backlogs at this time in terms of permits. Talking a little bit more about permits, we have a target of completing permits, getting them approved within 75% of the allotted time. The allotted time depends on the office and the type of permit, but you could see that as of October of last year, 2024, we were meeting that metric, that goal of 75%, and we were actually at 55%. So moving on to the ESI program, the Environmental Stakeholder Inclusion Program. It's referenced in our agency's non-discrimination policy, and the intent is to ensure that all of our stakeholders understand and are represented in agency actions through what we consider enhanced public service. So who are our stakeholders? They're the people of Indiana. Our non-discrimination policy states that the agency and agency staff are to provide fair treatment and meaningful involvement to all people. So that language, fair treatment and meaningful involvement, is language that we borrowed directly from the EPA environmental justice definition. We feel strongly that there are certain things that we cannot do in our roles, but we could definitely encourage the fair treatment of all of our stakeholders as well as meaningful involvement as it pertains to environmental matters. We work through an ESI request system, and what that is, it's typically an email to me. I'll do a presentation such as this, and if people have questions or concerns, they'll contact.
If you have a bunch of these words doubled up, involvement, quality of life, policy, quality of life again, policy, high poverty, policy. Dude,
me through
knock it off.
Request system with those questions or concerns, and then I will work with our subject matter experts in-house to get an answer to your question or your concern. And this is how we provide that enhanced service through that request process, ensuring that ADA accommodations are in place for public meetings or hearings, translation of documents primarily into Spanish, or ensuring that there's interpretation services available at those public meetings or hearings, assisting stakeholders with notification services and signing up for those services, making sure that all of the responses that I provide stakeholders are in plain English that they can understand. A lot of times when I do go to our subject matter experts for a response or clarification on an issue, they speak in a highly scientific terminology and language that I need to ensure that the stakeholder understands and gets the clarification that they need without further complicating the issue. So basically how I look at it is if I can understand the response, the stakeholder should be able to. And then other special assistance requests such as clarifications of agency actions or processes. This is how our program works from beginning to end. That ESI request comes in, again, it's typically an email. I start entering it into our Tempo case management system, and I update it throughout the process. I make an immediate acknowledgement to the stakeholder that I've received their request and I'm going to start working on it. And then there's an initial response or update within 30 days. We have a metric in place that the ESI request has to be completed and resolved within 90 days. I have never had an ESI request go more than 2 or 3 weeks. That 90-day metric is in place.
He's putting everybody to bed right now.
In place or needed to get that response, but I've never had an ESI request go 90 days.
I'm still paying attention.
This is a map that I developed based on 2023 ACS data that was released in December. It's a 5-year estimate, and so there is a year lag in that data as the Census Department correlates all that data and presents it to the public. So it is from 2023, but I want you to focus on these different socioeconomic indicators. You'll see them on the right-hand side. And you can see that Lake County has a high representation of all of those groups, as well as Marion County.
Oh.
The other thing that you want to pay attention to, or that I'd like you to pay attention to, is those pink segments on the map. Those are self-identified high population areas of Latinos and Hispanics primarily.
So it's almost like all the Mexicans are making everything dirty, huh? Kind of weird.
Spanish speakers. And that's one of the reasons that I was hired for this position. I am bilingual, and so I can communicate with those stakeholders if those stakeholders have.
Hey, can you just stop burning your trash, Essay?
One more thing that I want to share with all of you before I finish up here. What's in My Neighborhood? If you're not familiar with What's in My Neighborhood, it's a public access tool available on our website.
Huh.
And so if you just do a browser search of IDEM What's in My Neighborhood, you will go to this GIS-based tool. And so as you can see on the right-hand side, you have different options in terms of layers. You can click on all those layers to see what you're interested in. If you were to click on and toggle all of those layers, the map would just fill up with bullet points. So I chose to focus on state cleanups. I was looking at state cleanup Shapiro number 2, which is just south of us. It's where Shapiro's Deli is.
Yeah, they support legislators that want to shove random objects up their ass, and legislators that want to reduce felonies into misdemeanors for child neglect.
And so if you're familiar with Shapiro's Deli, if you look at this map and you were to question why Shapiro's Deli on there, you would look at where you see master AI documents. There's a hyperlink there. You can click on that and you would see all of the historical documents related to that site. So what I did was I clicked on that and I could see documents that we have going through 2008 when the investigation originally started there. It was a gas station for about 20 years in the 1930s. Then it was an auto repair shop, and then it was a machinery repair shop. And so there were some elevated levels of groundwater contamination in that area. IDEM installed groundwater monitoring wells, and 2 years later made the determination that there was no further action needed. So the gentleman that owns Shapiro's Deli got a no further action letter, and he was able to proceed with developing that restaurant at that location. So this is the first tool that I use when people approach me with questions or concerns. What's in my neighborhood? This is what I look at myself. It's a lot easier to navigate than the virtual file cabinet that a lot of people are familiar with. This will take you directly to the virtual file cabinet documents that you're interested in looking at. This is our contact information. You see our general web page address there, as well as a general email account. Raheem Evans is my colleague that serves the northern part of the state. He covers all of those counties north of Marion County. Herb Engman, myself, I cover the donut counties as well as the southern counties in Marion County. So if you have any questions or concerns about environmental needs, you can reach out to either one of us and we will get you the clarification that you need. So,
super.
Questions are
super duper.
Thank you. I think the thing that comes to mind for me in your presentation, Herb, is that I know, and I'm sure everyone here knows, that I end up facilitating constituents finding information because they find the process of finding information that they want from government to be really challenging. But I can see you put a lot of thought into helping people get there a little easier. That interface you just showed makes a lot of intuitive sense, and I'm sure I've never seen the what do you say, the lockbox or the virtual file cabinet.
Yeah.
That sounds complicated, so I'm sure this way of getting there is much easier. But I know we all appreciate you making this easy as possible for folks to find this information.
Yeah, I've tried to make it as easy as possible, and if it's not easy, I will find the answer for you. That is my job. So if I don't know the answer, I've got plenty of resources available in terms of subject matter experts to get you the answer to your question.
Super. Any questions
Super
for Mr.
duper, super duper.
Councilor Brown?
Very brief one. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Mr. Engman, for this. I had a question. I love that you're looking to try to connect with constituencies who might speak different languages and have questions. This is slightly personal benefit for me, but I know in my district we have a lot of data that suggests that Spanish-speaking populations are less likely to reach out asking the questions, regardless
probably because they don't know English.
of whether data shows that they could probably benefit from some sort of government program.
Sure.
Do you have any thoughts on the best way to make it clear that this exists for them to even know that they could reach out to you as a bilingual individual?
Well, the one thing that occurs to me that what we've been working on recently is, I think you talked about our Earth Day presentations. We go to the schools in all across the state, and we do Earth Day presentations for schools. And last year, we started doing them in Spanish.
Great.
In some of those areas, specifically the near west side. And so what we're trying to do is reach out to those children to maybe take those same messages home. We did a recycling lesson in Spanish. And so maybe go home and take those lessons like, why don't we recycle? Do we recycle? Right?
Sure.
And so, maybe the parents are questioning, where did you get this information? Well, this guy came to school and talked about it. And here's his information. So that's what we're trying to do in terms of Spanish outreach. We've also gone up and done official outreach at the Monarch Festival, which is in East Chicago, as well as the Fiesta de la Toña, which is in Bloomington.
Cool.
And so we've done some of the events here in town, but we've still found that a lot of Latinos and Hispanics seem to be somewhat reluctant to speak with maybe staff or government,
Sure.
right? There's distrust there. And I have a feeling that may get worse, unfortunately. So,
well, Mexicans like to just help Mexicans out. So also, like, if you can't speak the language, get the fuck out.
we're doing the best we can to make sure that those stakeholders have the same opportunities as everybody else. But all we can do is try.
Thank you. Great answer. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Final opportunity for Mr. Amon? Okay. Thank you very much.
All right,
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for the outreach initially.
Thank you.
Now, is Julia here?
Nope.
Okay. So we were about to conclude. I will tell you that one of the things I am trying to do with our meetings is kick them off with an example of an institution or a person who's doing something impactful and meaningful, and that's why we had the airport come last time, and wasn't able to make it tonight, but I've had some really positive interactions with my constituents at Butler University, and they've made a very meaningful and intentional effort around sustainability in the last several years, especially under Butler's First Lady, Bethany Denko, has made it a mission to really put a lot of time and effort into it, and the changes they're making are impressive. So hopefully we get them here for the next meeting to let you know what they're doing. And also we have another big institution in Indianapolis hopefully lined up for later in these Q1 and Q2 series of meetings. But with that, we can, one more question.
I just want to make first of all, thank you for the invitation and for this meeting tonight. It was very informative for me. I'll ask, just as the chair and as this committee, as we're trying to kind of create a path forward, that we set some time to kind of talk through our priorities, right, from all these presentations, and what are some of the things that we would like to see and that we can lead on for the council and for the city.
Sure. I think that's a great point, and thank you for
Basically, he's like, what do we do here? It's like, hey, all these presentations are nice and all. We're getting a lot of great information, but what exactly are we doing?
asking. Like I mentioned at the beginning, one of the things I want to do is take this information we're collecting and sort of wrestle with it a little bit in public and let people participate in that. And so what does that look like? So from this presentation or the ones that we'll get later, what's the output of that, I think is what you're saying, and what can we actually do with that information? And
yeah,
I have several ideas from this presentation.
That'll work.
That last year we had the White River Alliance together come, and they had been doing a lot of work, and they had a lot of thoughts on proposals that they would like us to consider, and they wanted to come back and put that on the agenda, and so they're going to be coming back for that discussion. So great point, Councilor Perkins. I appreciate you making it, and we'll make sure we do that. Okay, with that, we can adjourn tonight's meeting, and thanks for everyone.
Oh, all of this is terrible. This committee, the department that's really part of DPW is just a giant waste of money. I look forward to becoming mayor one day and I can totally get rid of it. I am looking forward to that day of just stop wasting tax dollars. It's obviously like it's just all yappy, yappy, yappy. Anyway, until next time.